Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is Kidlit Joy and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here to review this season's draft by Jason Gent, which I hope I'm pronouncing correctly. This book was sent to me for review by Alan and Unwin, so thank you very much to them. It is an upcoming Australian YA verse novel and it is centred around the sport of AFL, which is our big national football league in Australia. And the formatting of this book is really fantastic and I'm going to get into that in a minute. The blurb on the back says summer, winter, autumn, spring. As the year unfolds, AFL footy season starts and the dreams of 6 teenagers play out on and off the field. Elias, team player, running keeps him calm. Zac and Fletcher, best mates, top 5 draft picks. Mason, perfect practice with dad, makes perfect play. Dane, great footballer, terrible boyfriend. Beth, it's always been Dane and Beth. What does just Beth look like? Plans unravel and life bounces in unexpected directions. A brilliant YA novel about coming of age and the love of the game with all its triumph, heartbreak and hope. Anyone who follows my other channel knows that I'm not much of a football person. I'm much more an ice hockey person. So anything that I read that centers around AFL is always a learning curve for me, just because even though I've grown up here and I'm surrounded by AFL culture, it's not something I've really paid all that much attention to. I'm always excited to see books like this because I think they have a particular interest for particularly boys, but also now that we've had a much higher uptake on girls playing football as well, also girls. But I did want to highlight a comment that the author actually had included in the notes for this book, which said, I wrote this book for young men who are reluctant readers, young men who want to see themselves in characters, young men who have experienced a spectrum of adversity and are approaching their senior year of schooling. I wrote this book as an ode to football and the people's stories in that world. I wrote this season's draft for my teenage self. And I do think that's important because I think there is a bit of a gap in the YA market. Not a huge one because I think we have some really incredible books written, particularly for teenage boys, but I think we can always improve in that area, particularly when we want to talk around ideas of friendship culture and how we want our teen boys to interact and be part of the greater world. For a lot of Australian teen boys, sports is their life. Whether it's AFL or soccer or anything like that, they're working towards a goal, and our 5 male presenting characters are all aiming to play football professionally. They're hoping to get drafted, they're hoping to play professionally, they're in their final year of high school, and they are working towards this singular goal, and each of them is going through something different in their life. And this is where I want to talk about the format of the book. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but there are sections in this book broken up by the seasons. So we start off in summer, we go through autumn, winter, spring, and then we finally, like the epilogue is the next summer. In each section, we get one chapter from each character's perspective, and it's in verse. So we're getting their experiences through their eyes, told in verse, as they're experiencing different things. And because we're going through seasons, there are time jumps between each season and different things happen in between there. So Elias has always been a very much a team player. He has always kind of been in the middle ground, and at the start of the book, he has kind of decided that he wants to try and step up to try and catch the eyes of the recruiters, and is given some gentle and friendly reminders that actually the work that he does as someone who is such a good team player, someone who is a good leader, is the most important thing, because that's what people look up to. Zac and Fletcher have been best friends. They're both predicted to be in the top 5 draft picks for the next year. They do everything together. They train together. They practice together in their little court, and all their neighbours are just kind of exasperated by their competitive nature. And what they're working towards is, you know, eventually they will be drafted, and more than likely they will go to different teams. And so suddenly it's not a case of if they're going to be drafted, but what happens when they're separated and probably playing against each other as rivals in the future. Mason's storyline is really interesting. He's a small guy in a sport where quite often people are quite tall, and he practices every afternoon with his dad in the backyard, and they practice in a really particular way. And Mason's dad has trained with him every day and has taught him to be confident kicking with both his left and right foot, which means that no one can really tell what his dominant side is, but it makes him a really great all-around player. And through the first half of the year in this book, his father dies, and that is a real blow to Mason because he's had his dad at his back, helping him and training with him every day, all in pursuit of this goal of being drafted. But in the second half of the book, we also see how Mason's relationship with his mother evolves, and it's beautiful. I wasn't sure initially in the first section how I was going to feel about Mason's character, but by the end I was just thrilled for him and how his story played out, because nothing went according to plan for him. Nothing went the way he expected it to, and yet he began to see things in a different light, and I think that was amazing. Dane is a typical jock, or what you would perceive to be a typical jock kind of stereotype character. He is someone who used to be really strong academically and probably still is, but dropped his course load at school in order to pursue football, and he's made it his whole life. And he's been dating Beth for years, I believe is kind of the implication. But at the start of the book, he cheats on her and he doesn't feel bad about it. Yet he still wants to keep Beth around because she's his person. And then in Beth's chapters, we get the flip side of that as she reflects on how Dane has changed since he's made football his everything, and how she doesn't know where she fits into that anymore. And is she strong enough and willing to take things on board and carve out her own space for her own interests, and if that even includes Dane, which it doesn't. And so the two of them are both grappling with the loss of this relationship for both positive and negative reasons. And alongside that, Dane also then deals with a football injury that basically ends his season. And who is he without football? Which I think is a really important thing, because it seems to be a very common thing where some kids who are aiming for the highest level of a sport that they can get to don't always have a backup plan for if something happens. And the inherent thing about sport is that anything can happen and you can be injured at any point in time, and suddenly your plans will have to look different. The cool thing at the end is we do get to find out who does get drafted and who doesn't, and what that means for them, but it's left open-ended enough that we wonder, what's going to happen next for all of our characters. But I think it was really cleverly written. I liked the formatting of it in terms of the seasons and only getting 5 chapters from each character, but we still learn so much about them through the book. I think it is beautifully told and definitely a great one that hopefully will capture the attention of teen boys. So it's perfect for its audience. It's also perfect for any fan of the AFL. So thank you again to the publisher for sending me a review copy. I will leave a link to where you can find out more information about the book down below. In the comments, I'd love to know, do you have a favorite sporting book for teens, or do you have recommendations for books for teens? Feel free to leave those down below. If you just want to let me know that you're here but you don't leave a comment, feel free to leave any kind of sporting emoji down below. Otherwise, I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye everyone.